Rain, snow, thunderstorms, and ahead of this big weather system, we're going to see some reservoir releases as well. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods breaking down all the weather impact elements as we head into this alert period Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. With rain, thunderstorms, and cooler weather, be alert to those changes because we've got a big pulse of cold air interacting with a fairly active weather system. That's really going to draw down that snow line. We've got a winter storm warning in effect for the lower elevations. That's going to be 5 p.m. Friday through Sunday evening at 11 p.m. above 4,500 feet. We're anticipating 1 to 4 feet of snow coming in, as well as gusty winds. Now, as we head up into the Tahoe Basin, we've got a winter storm watch that starts up Friday night, lasts through Sunday night as well. This is going to be this stretch right here in kind of the lighter blue, 6 to 28 inches of snow. All that being said, check travel conditions. It is going to be fluctuating in the high country, starting off as rain and then transitioning over to snow. So snow kind of gets everybody a little bit excited here. Some hits and misses with the storm that's coming in. First and foremost, we're going to go over the hits. Fire risk is going to delay the dryness and bring up the soil moisture, which we have seen some aggressive drying, especially after that record-setting heat wave that we saw in March. Now, for the snowpack, it's too little, too late. It's tough to build the snowpack right now, and it's quick to melt given how warm the temperatures have been. So initially, that first kind of wave of snow that comes through melts pretty quickly, and then as that soil as well as the surface areas, especially the streets and some of the roads, start to get colder, then we start to see that snowpack build. But again, this time of year is just really, really a struggle. That's why usually we mark that April 1st date as the end of building the snowpack and more of the snow melt. Keep in mind, this year, way ahead of pace, we started melting that snowpack off very early in March. So this is where things stand right now. The Northern Sierra and Trinity Basin, 5% of average. The Central Sierra at 17, Southern, 25% of average, with our statewide average at 15%. It's not much. Now, we don't expect to see huge numbers coming in April, but you can see the amount of red up there in the Sierra. Just looking at one particular mark on that all those red dots throughout the Sierra spine. This is going to be the Central Sierra Snow Lab. What I want to mark right here is in the green is where we should be. We should be sitting at about 28.7 for our precipitation. The black line is where we are. It is basically nothing at all. So a little bit of snow, like I said, will at least delay the ongoing dryness throughout not only the lower elevations, but the foothills and the Sierra as well. This is a look at tracking that snowpack. This is what we normally see at that particular location, Central Sierra Snow Lab. That's in Soda Springs. It's along I-80. And numbers go up pretty nicely here, January, February, even March. Big numbers usually at that station. This is what we saw this year. October off to a decent start, but when you consider what the numbers usually are, even though it was a big start, it didn't really mean that much, right? Okay, December, January, huge losses there for what we normally see, especially January. That month really hurt us in the long run. February, we caught up nicely, but then March almost ended up with zero. We got a little bit late in the day overnight, so we'll just call it zero for all intents and purposes because it really just didn't do much for us at all. So that's a look at the snowpack. The rainy season almost followed exactly the same. This is for Sacramento, and you can see our biggest months for rain is December, January, and February. March can be a bit of a player there, but all three of those wettest months came below average, and then March, I mean, again, we squeaked it out with 0.14 of an inch of rain at the 11th hour. We were about to end up with zero on the map for March, but then we got that late storm coming through. So statewide precipitation, the big winner in this water year so far has been Southern California, largely because of the October and November numbers that we saw with the precipitation. But keep in mind, Northern California has the largest reservoirs. That's where we need to see the big numbers. Kind of the bonus round in all of this is we were terribly dry with growing drought in Southern California. Last year, we talked about those historic fires that burned Palisades, Eaton, in Southern California near Los Angeles. So it was nice to see some rain coming in to just kind of tamp down some of the growing fire hazards. But in Northern California, where we're storing that water right now, we've seen some pretty big deficits grow. You might have noticed that Tahoe, though, only about 0.2 inches behind normal. That's because we saw more rain than snow. kind of alluding to some of the climate issues that we've been struggling with more of the lower elevation seeing rain over snow, which is our frozen reservoir, which really helps to build our water year, at least the way that things were set up in the 50s and 60s in California. Fall rain starts October, November. 50% of our annual precipitation comes December, January, February, hitting that peak snowpack again, typically at the end of March, beginning that peak snow melt. And then we have that storage for when water is at its highest demand. We're dry, we're hot. Things are really starting to get crispy around here and for agriculture purposes. And this is why I said Northern California really needs some of that rainfall, because we've got this whole water conveyance system set up throughout the state of California. Biggest reservoirs in the northern part of the state. It's transported southward through a series of aqueducts and canals that take it through the delta and then southward as we head into some of the drier parts of the state, which quite frankly just don't have the snowpack and the capacity to hold the amount of water that we do in the northern part of the state. So the northern part of the state is really critical for where we stand with our supplies. This is the great news in this big picture story. This is 1 year out of a multi-year situation for storage. And since the past couple of years have been fairly good, we're running ahead of pace for that storage in many of our biggest reservoirs, including Trinity, Shasta, and Oroville. Shasta and Oroville are going to be the main ones for the state and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation in terms of total storage capacity. And they're all pretty close to, if not right about 100% of capacity. We head down to the Central Sierra, and most of those doing pretty well as well. Ahead of pace, ahead of average, and about 75 to 85% full, almost 90% full for San Luis. That's going to be that off-stream pumped reservoir. A little more flexibility with that one in terms of releasing. So we've got this next weather system due in. Satellite and radar confirming that low pressure system off the coast. I want to let you know that Folsom is going to be increasing their releases on Saturday. They're going to go from 2,000 cubic feet per second to 7,500 feet per second, cubic feet per second. Rivers are going to be cold, fast, high. It's going to be one of those very dangerous situations. They are advising extreme caution on the river for the lower American River in particular. So this cold pulse of air comes rushing in here Saturday and Sunday, connecting to that low pressure system sitting off the coast. As we kind of unfold the changes in the forecast, Friday is going to be a big risk time for the Central Valley, the foothills, even towards the East Bay community. We're talking widespread thunderstorms, heavy rain, gusty winds, hail that could be damaging, especially to vehicles, and then some small funnel clouds. We're going to be keeping a watchful eye on that situation. Over towards the coast, we've got a chance of thunderstorms developing. That'll stretch inland on Saturday, but the threshold looks a little bit lighter there into that Saturday forecast. So this all starts up on Friday, lasts through Saturday. What I want to point out, too, is you'll notice that it's mostly rain early on in this event, and then we get that cold pulse of air, big snowpack building for the Sierra into our Sunday evening, and then things start to clear out on Monday. So checking in on some of those totals, we're going to be upwards of an inch in some places throughout the valley. Any place that gets an isolated storm that dumps a lot of rain in a short period of time could have some minor flooding issues. We just don't have the drainage system that we need for some of those bigger thunderstorms rolling through. And then 3+ inches of rain for the foothills and even parts of the Sierra, because again, that snow doesn't really start up until deeper into the forecast. Once it does, we get some pretty good numbers coming through, especially south of Highway 50. So we're going to be watching that because that will add additional pressure on some of those reservoirs. Our moisture tracker kind of pulling in all this moisture from the Pacific, but overall a likely warmer pattern for Southern California. We're sticking with a likely wetter pattern all the way through the middle of April. It's usually not a huge player for us with precipitation, but it looks like we may be able to do a little bit of catching up for those deficits that continue to grow in March. All right, let's take a look at those numbers, and we're going to find some much cooler weather for our Friday. Highs near 50 for the Tahoe Basin, 50s and 60s down the hill. For the coast, we're looking at highs in the 60s, and we'll carry that inland. So out of the 80s into the 60s, we started off with temperatures in the mid to upper 80s earlier this week, and now everything is starting to cool off. We drop to the 30s by the time we get to Sunday for the Sierra. And then for the foothills, we're looking at highs dropping into the 40s. Again, we could see some active weather, especially into our Friday forecast there. And for the Bay Area, we've got areas of rain all the way through the weekend, highs near 60, with our extended forecast showing the 3 days of that weather impact alert. And then we dry out pretty nicely, but we're still going to keep it a little below average on Monday. It's going to take a little time for the atmosphere to rebound after this cold pool of air comes in from the Gulf of Alaska. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, weather impact alert days. And don't forget, they are going to increase those releases out of Folsom Dam on Saturday.